Welcome to Skytech-Lens. On the autumn evening of October 9, 2025, Prime Minister Mark Carney prepared for a journey that would define his leadership. The next day, he would face President Donald Trump in the Oval Office, the epicenter of American power, to resolve a bitter trade dispute. For months, tariffs and threats had strained the Canada-US partnership. Trump's unpredictable tactics had rattled markets. Carney's calm resolve had steadied his nation. Suddenly, news broke. The White House was considering lifting the tariffs. Relief swept through Canadian communities hardest hit by the trade war. Carney's strategy of patience and unity seemed on the verge of vindication. Yet, with Trump, nothing was certain until the ink dried. The world watched, wondering if quiet Canadian resolve could outmaneuver American bravado. Carney's journey to Washington was more than a flight. It was the culmination of a deliberate, disciplined plan. He had built alliances, unified the country, and let economic realities speak louder than rhetoric. As his plane cut through the night, it carried the hopes of a nation that had chosen quiet strength over provocation. The showdown was set, but the decisive battle might already be won. The 2025 trade dispute was a clash of opposites. Donald Trump, the American president, thrived on spectacle and confrontation, wielding tariffs as weapons and Twitter as his stage. Mark Carney, Canada's new Prime Minister, was a man of data and discipline, a banker facing a bulldog. Carney's elbows-up campaign promised toughness, but his real weapon was strategic patience. While Trump escalated, Carney built bridges, quietly strengthening Canada's economic foundations. He refused to match Trump's volume, knowing a public feud would only escalate the conflict. Critics at home demanded retaliation, but Carney held firm, betting that economic pain would force the U.S. to reconsider. He focused on Canada's value and resilience, not on trading insults. It was a battle of temperament, showmanship versus strategy. Carney's calm logic became Canada's shield. In the end, it was the steadfast, not the loudest, who shaped the outcome. The world saw two leaders, but only one played the long game. Carney's response to U.S. tariffs was anything but passive. He moved quickly to diversify Canada's trade, finalizing deals with Europe and Asia to reduce reliance on the U.S. At home, he built unity, countering Trump's attempts to divide provinces. His public meeting with Alberta Premier Daniel Smith sent a clear message. Canada stood united. This unity was a diplomatic weapon, signaling to Washington that divide and conquer would fail. Carney resisted calls for all-out retaliation, opting for targeted counter-tariffs and gestures of goodwill. He balanced pressure with restraint, giving the U.S. room to de-escalate. The blueprint: expand trade, show unity, apply calibrated pressure. It was quiet, calculated, and effective. Carney's strategy was the architecture of Canada's success. The trade war exposed a simple truth: America's industries depend on Canada's resources. Canadian steel, aluminum, oil, and electricity are woven into the fabric of U.S. manufacturing. The Ford F-150, Boeing jets, and Midwest refineries all rely on Canadian inputs. Trump's tariffs, meant to protect U.S. jobs, instead raised costs and threatened American factories. Carney let these economic facts speak for themselves. He didn't need to shout about Canada's leverage. He let U.S. businesses feel it. As supply chains strained, American companies became unlikely advocates for ending the dispute. Canada's quiet power was undeniable. In the end, economic reality, not rhetoric, forced Washington's hand. Behind the headlines, the trade war's true cost was human. In Canadian cities like Hamilton and Sault Ste. Marie, families faced layoffs and uncertainty. American manufacturers, hit by soaring material costs, froze hiring and cut jobs. The tariffs, meant to protect workers, ended up hurting them on both sides of the border. Reports of shuttered factories and stalled projects grew. Business leaders and local politicians in the U.S. began pressuring the White House to end the conflict. Carney understood this dynamic. He let the economic pain build political pressure in Washington. He didn't need to attack Trump. American workers and business owners did it for him. The human cost became a force for change. The dispute shifted from a battle of leaders to a groundswell for common sense. In the end, it was people, not politicians, who demanded resolution. The White House's retreat wasn't sudden. It was the result of a failed strategy. Trump's tariffs backfired, hurting U.S. manufacturers and farmers. Economic pain became a political liability, eroding support in key states. Carney's quiet, methodical approach denied Trump the drama he craved. Instead, Carney expanded trade, unified Canada, and let the facts speak. As American businesses suffered, pressure mounted on the White House from all sides. Even Trump's allies began to question the wisdom of the trade war. The United Canadian Front, symbolized by Carney and Smith, showed Washington its leverage was limited. With no good options left, Trump had to back down. The tariffs failed to win concessions. Instead, they exposed America's vulnerabilities. Carney's patience and strategy left Washington with only one logical choice: lift the tariffs. The victory was quiet, but decisive. It was a masterclass in substance over spectacle. The alliance between Carney and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith was a turning point. Political opposites, they stood together to show Canada's unity. Their joint appearance shattered Washington's hopes of exploiting provincial divisions. By speaking with one voice, they made clear that an attack on one industry was an attack on all. This solidarity gave Carney immense leverage. He spoke for a united nation, not just a government. The message: Canada would not be divided or intimidated. At home, the alliance inspired Canadians, reminding them of their collective strength. In a fractured world, unity became Canada's greatest asset. Carney's leadership proved that true strength lies in bringing people together. The 2025 tariff dispute ended not with fireworks, but with a quiet deal. Carney's approach was the opposite of Trump's: careful, patient, and grounded in economic reality. He built a case so strong that the U.S. had no choice but to relent. While Trump tweeted, Carney signed trade deals and built alliances. He let American dependence on Canadian resources speak for itself. Calls for escalation were ignored. Carney trusted the fundamentals. The announcement that tariffs would be lifted came quietly. A simple acknowledgement of reality. The lesson: in a noisy world, real power is often exercised in silence. Carney's victory was a triumph of discipline and strategy. The art of the quiet deal prevailed. The resolution of the crisis was a defining moment for Canada. It proved that true strength lies in unity, patience, and quiet confidence. Carney's leadership stood in stark contrast to chaos south of the border. Canada's resources and economic integration became its greatest leverage. The crisis shattered the myth of Canada as a junior partner. Federal and provincial leaders stood together, making unity Canada's strongest asset. The world saw a nation acting with purpose and discipline. Carney's refusal to play Trump's game was the key to victory. Canada's quiet triumph became a model for leadership in turbulent times. In the end, it was substance, not spectacle, that prevailed. Thanks for watching. Subscribe the channel for more updates.